Winning an Olympic gold medal as an American doesn't mean much because it's expected. For example, Steph Curry has never played in the Olympics, and if he retired without a gold medal, nobody would care. But for any of the European stars, winning a gold medal for their country against this Team USA would be a greater accomplishment than winning an NBA championship. Manu Ginobili defeating USA and winning gold in 2004 was one of the greatest feats in basketball history. So what about this year? Team USA have arguably the most stacked roster since the Dream Team, and after being humiliated at the World Cup last year, they're more motivated than ever to win it. So what would it mean for these international stars and their legacies if against all odds they were able to win it with their nation? Starting with the golden boy Victor Wembanyama. You wouldn't know Team USA are the clear favourites to win Olympic gold this year if you stepped foot in France, because they are fully 100% convinced that as the host nation, they will win the Olympics. In 2021 they made the final, losing to USA in single digits. In 2022 they lost in the final of Eurobasket to Spain. They're getting closer and closer to winning every year. But back then they didn't have Victor Wembanyama, the most unique player we've seen in basketball history. These Olympics will be Wemby's first real experience with the national team. He missed last year's World Cup to focus on preparing for the NBA season, and he will return home to France a completely different player to the guy they last saw over a year ago. Domestically in the French league as a teenager, Wembanyama won everything. He was MVP, leading scorer, defensive player of the year, rookie of the year, and won the championship. But in EuroLeague, he only averaged 6.7 points, 3.5 rebounds, and shot 30% from the field. Fast forward today, and this is not the same Wembanyama. He had one of the greatest rookie seasons in NBA history, he won Rookie of the Year by unanimous decision, and should have become the first player to ever win Defensive Player of the Year as a rookie. We are watching Wembanyama ascend to greatness in real time, quicker than anyone anticipated. Even now in the off-season we see his physical transformation. The last time we saw Wembanyama play basketball was in April. We have no idea how much he could have improved in this time period, and this year's Olympics could be the stage where Wembanyama fulfills his destiny. He is the hometown hero. Born in Paris, he played for a Paris-based club. France have never won a gold medal at the Olympics, and they may never have a better chance than now in 2024 as the home nation. A lot of people feel that France may be the biggest threat to Team USA, because the one thing USA struggled with at the FIBA World Cup was teams with size. Guys like Papa Giannis, Jonas Valanciunas and the Wagner brothers absolutely dominated them inside. And no nation in the world has a better front court than this France team. Victor Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert are arguably the two best defenders in basketball. You pair them together with FIBA's lenient goaltending rules and no 3-second violation, and that's a matchup nightmare for any team. Wemby might not have the most star-studded supporting cast, but he does have a nice mix of NBA veterans like Evan Fournier and Nicolas Batum. You also have some of the top EuroLeague guys as well. Nando De Colo, one of the all-time leading scorers, as well as Mateusz Lazor, Yabusele, not to mention Bilal Coulibaly, who Victor already has chemistry with dating back to his time in France. Victor Wembanyama is a rare type of player who everybody can see has the potential to be the greatest of all time. And to be the greatest, you have to do great things. And if he as a 20-year-old can lead his country to a gold medal for the first time in nation's history, then it would be the greatest start imaginable for Victor Wembanyama's inevitable case of being one of the greatest players of all time. The next player has arguably the most to prove, and that's Nikola Jokic, who over the last 4 years has been the best player in basketball. Nikola Jokic is in the middle of one of the greatest peaks in NBA history. He was MVP of the league this year. He's won the award 3 times in the last 4 years, and although he didn't win it in 2023, some would argue he should have, he did still win the championship, was finals MVP and produced one of the greatest individual playoff runs we've ever seen. In terms of NBA success, Nikola Jokic is probably already the greatest European of all time. He's also one of the greatest big men in NBA history, and although cracking the top 5 is almost impossible, if anyone's going to replace someone on the Mount Rushmore, it's him. But it would require something extraordinary, and winning gold at this year's Olympics would be extraordinary. Back home in Serbia, for a lot of people, Nikola Jokic is considered a myth. They are a country that care very little for the NBA. The Nuggets are an American team. It makes no difference to them as fans what Jokic achieves in Denver. It's so bad that back home some people question whether or not he's even the best Serbian basketball player alive, and that's because Nikola Jokic has consistently underperformed when representing the national team. So much so that some fans would even argue they're better without him. And that's because he's not been the same player. His best performance for Serbia came in 2016 when he helped them reach the final of the Olympics. They were destroyed by Team USA and Jokic scored only 6 points. At the 2019 FIBA World Cup, with a weaker USA squad, Serbia were dubbed the tournament favourites. Jokic averaged just 11.5 points over 8 games, and Serbia were defeated in the quarter-finals by Argentina led by Luis Scola. Then again at 2022 Eurobasket, Serbia were one of the tournament favourites, and in comparison to tournament MVP Willy Hernangomez, Bulgaria's Sasha Vezenkov and even Lauri Markkanen for Finland, Nikola Jokic looked nothing like the two-time MVP, and they crashed out early in the competition to Simone Fontecchio and Italy in the round of 16. To make things worse, he became even more unpopular back home when he chose to sit out of the 2023 FIBA World Cup to go home and watch horses. Serbia made the final of the tournament, further than they've ever been with Jokic. Obviously, adding Nikola Jokic to that team wouldn't make them weaker, but you can understand the frustration from the Serbia fans, feeling as if Jokic had played, they would have won. The good news is Serbia will have Jokic this summer. Of all the stars mentioned in this video, Jokic has the best supporting cast. They're gonna have EuroLeague MVP Vasilij Micic, one of Jokic's favourite teammates from when he was young in Serbia. They have Bogdanovic, who was one of the best players at the World Cup. He's a legitimate NBA starter. Pokusevski and Nikola Jovic are NBA players. And they also have a bunch of top players who play at a high level in Europe. Marko Guduric from Fenerbahce, Militunov from Olympiacos. This is Serbia's golden generation. They will probably never have a crop of players this talented ever again. So with the Olympic cycle being every 4 years, and their 3 main guys, Jokic, Micic and Bogdanovic, all being in their primes, it's now or never for this team to win something. Without Jokic, they've came close to winning gold. Nikola Jokic has to be the difference maker, the guy that brings the gold home. He's won an NBA title without another All-Star, but can he do it on the international stage? Because although he was young, he wasn't a superstar in Europe like Doncic or to a lesser degree Wemby. He hasn't had a career-defining tournament from his country, and when talking about the greatest international players of all time, he has to win a title with his country to be considered the greatest. He has the talent, he has the team, and now more than ever, he carries the weight of his nation on his shoulders, under pressure to deliver. We've spoke about Europeans, so what about a North American? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who last season in the NBA had an MVP caliber season but didn't win MVP, and led a young inexperienced OKC team who didn't make the playoffs the previous year to the 1 seed in the Western Conference. SGA is a certified bucket getter. At 26 years old, he's going to be one of the best guards for a very long time, and he leads a Canadian team who are ready to compete. This is probably the best Canada team ever in terms of NBA talent. SGA will be paired in a backcourt alongside Jamal Murray, 2 of the clutchest players in the league. You have defensive specialists on the wings, Lou Dort and Dylan Brooks, who by the way, let's not forget, dropped 39 points on Team USA to send them home from the World Cup last year. They also have RJ Barrett, Kelly Olynyk, Trey Lyles, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and many other recognisable NBA players. But they'll have to do without 2-time National Player of the Year Zach Edey. Andrew Wiggins will also not be there, that's huge. But SGA has enough talent around him to make a deep run. Canada finished 3rd place at the FIBA World Cup. This was an incredible accomplishment, the first World Cup medal for Canada. SGA was the leader of that team, and he showed at the World Cup that his game perfectly translates to the international level. He made team of the tournament, and he's only just getting started. Canada have a golden generation. Defeating USA at the World Cup last year was a massive statement. They are coming and are ready to compete with the United States in basketball for years to come. If you look at all the teams in the Olympics, other than the USA, they have the most NBA talent. Eventually they are going to win the Olympics, and so far, they've never had a better chance to do so than now. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is at an age where he's creating his legacy. we have no idea what he's going to end up accomplishing. But I think everyone can agree when talking about the next faces of the NBA and guys that are going to dominate basketball for years to come, Shai is in that conversation. With Booker, Ant, Ja, Luka, etc. Those are the guys when you make top 5 lists, you're probably going to be comparing to each other. Right now, at least none of the North American players have been crowned. Nobody's a champion of any sort just yet. But I think Shai's the one in pole position to win championships in the NBA, as entering his prime years, the Thunder have what looks to be a dynasty. So if Canada win gold this year and USA don't, that for me puts him clearly ahead of any of the young North American guys in the NBA. And if you combine that incredible achievement with MVPs and titles that we expect him to win in the future, now you're talking about one of the greatest guards in history, and you're comparing him to all-time greats of the past. Canada have a strong team, but he's the superstar, and if they do win it, he'll receive the majority of the credit. And in terms of from his own country and becoming the greatest player in Canadian history, I believe when it's all said and done, SGA will be number 1. Steve Nash may have 2 MVPs. I think Shai can not only match that, but I'd also argue that Shai's past season in which he didn't win MVP was just as good if not better than any of Nash's MVP seasons. Nash also didn't win an NBA title, nor did he win anything with Canada. I expect SGA to do both at some point of his career, and it could start this summer at these Olympics. Another player with everything to prove at the international level, he may be the greatest Greek player to ever play in the NBA, winning 2 MVPs, being Defensive Player of the Year and producing one of the greatest performances in NBA Finals history, en route to winning a title and Finals MVP. But Giannis is another who has consistently come up short for his country, and until he wins a title with the national team, he will never be considered by Greeks the greatest Greek player ever. Not when you have Vasilis Spanoulis, who won multiple EuroLeague championships and famously defeated LeBron James and Team USA. 2016, Greece failed to qualify for the Olympics. In the 2019 FIBA World Cup, Giannis, the NBA MVP, averaged just 14 points per game and Greece finished 11th. At Eurobasket in 2022, Greece were eliminated by Germany in the quarter-final. This will be Giannis' first time playing in the Olympics, and no, the Greek national team is not just full of Antetokounmpo brothers. The only other one on the team is Kostas, who just won a EuroLeague title at Panathinaikos. But while their team isn't stacked by NBA standards, in terms of European stars and players who know the international game, they have some of the best talent in this tournament. Nick Kalafes is one of the all-time assist leaders in EuroLeague history, and Kostas Lukas was just MVP of the EuroLeague Final Four. They also have Papa Nikolaou, Papa Giannis, Papa Petru, Metoglou, even former EuroLeague Defensive Player of the Year Thomas Walkup. Greece have a strong, experienced team, but in order for them to compete with the top nations, Giannis has to be Giannis. He has to dominate the game and be the unstoppable two-way force we've all seen him be in the NBA. As for his legacy all time, when you discuss the greatest European players in basketball history, Giannis is definitely up there, but at least in the NBA sphere, most people would say Jokic has matched and now surpassed him. Since winning the title in 2021, Giannis' teams have come up short in the NBA. They're yet to return to the NBA Finals, but if he can win gold at this year's Olympics with Greece, not only would he become undeniably the greatest player in the nation's history, to those who doubt him back home, but it would probably put him ahead of Jokic again when we talk about the greatest ever from Europe. Because winning gold with Greece at the Olympics would immortalise him. They have some of the most passionate basketball fans in the world. He's never played for Olympiacos or Panathinaikos, so he doesn't have the backing of the big Greek clubs' fan bases. But if he was to unite the nation by winning the Olympics, he would be one of the unique players in the nation's history that's loved by all of Greece. For a basketball-mad nation, winning Olympic gold has been a dream ever since. And for somebody as patriotic as Giannis, you know he would love to be the one that brings it home. Speaking of basketball players today who have the potential to be the greatest of all time, there is another, and that's Luka Doncic, who just produced one of the greatest individual seasons in NBA history. He was the best player in the Western Conference, led Dallas to the finals before losing in 5 games. But Luka Doncic ain't a loser, and I don't think a lot of NBA fans from America understand who Luka Doncic is. He has been a winner at every level of his career. He famously defeated NBA stars in their primes as a 17-year-old, leading Slovenia to their first ever gold medal at Eurobasket. He then won a EuroLeague championship with Real Madrid. Won MVP, Finals MVP and Rookie of the Year in the same season, the youngest to ever do so in competition history, and something no other draft prospect has even came close to accomplishing. In my opinion, he was by far the greatest draft prospect of all time, and I will argue that with anyone. He was the most accomplished teenager in the history of the sport, and before even being drafted, he had a resume that would have made him a Hall of Famer. And in the NBA at 25 years old, he is one of very few players that's on an all-time great trajectory. Winning the championship this year with Dallas would have inserted Luka into future GOAT conversations, but if he was to lead Slovenia to a gold medal at the Olympics, then I would argue that makes him one of the greatest of all time. The population of Slovenia is 2.1 million, that is just 0.6% of the US population. Slovenia are not exactly the most prominent European nation. They don't have a rich history of success in basketball like Spain, Greece or Serbia. The Slovenia roster features just one other NBA player, and to the most notable name other than Luka is Dragic. Not Goran Dragic, Zoran Dragic. What Luka Doncic has been able to accomplish with the Slovenian national team is nothing short of remarkable. Not only did he defeat Greece with Antetokounmpo, Latvia with Porzingis, Spain with the Gasols, Rubio and Ibaka to win gold as a 17-year-old, but he also led Slovenia to a 17-game win streak, and in the 2021 Olympics was this close to leading Slovenia to a gold medal game. As we all know, next time Luka was matched up with Gobert on the perimeter with the game on the line, he took it into his own hands. But that loss to France there was devastating. Not only did Slovenia miss out on a chance at gold, but also a guaranteed silver medal at the Olympics, which would have been one of the greatest sporting accomplishments for their nation. Since then, Luka Doncic has made it his #1 mission to win gold with Slovenia, which he says would mean more to him than winning an NBA championship.
What would mean more to you? A gold medal with the Team Slovenia or NBA championship with an
I would say gold medal with Slovenia. You play for your country, and that's something that really, but I wouldn't mind both.
Now in regards to Luka, it won't happen this year in Paris. Mavs fans will be delighted to hear that Luka will be getting some much needed rest as Giannis and Greece eliminated Slovenia in qualifying. It's unfortunate that one of these countries had to go home, but that's just the way it worked out in qualifiers. I will say, if Luka ever wins gold at the Olympics with Slovenia, it would probably be the greatest accomplishment in the history of basketball, because it would require beating one of the greatest basketball teams ever assembled, as well as defeating other international stars among the way. It would be the equivalent of at least 3 NBA titles, and it would give Luka an angle in the GOAT debate that I don't think we've had before. Doncic could be the one all-time great player in basketball history that has conquered the sport at the highest levels of the professional game. He can say he won in EuroLeague, in NBA, in FIBA and at the Olympics. He has an opportunity to have the most complete resume in basketball history, but at some point in his career, he has to become a world champion with the national team. Of all the other top European players, Luka Doncic has consistently been the best when representing the national team. And in comparison to the other contending nations, he has the worst supporting cast. So if he pulls this off and wins gold, it would be one of the biggest carry jobs in basketball history, and I think even without an NBA title, Luka Doncic making Slovenia world champions of basketball would make him the greatest international player in basketball history, regardless of what he does or doesn't do in the NBA. And finally, we have Joel Embiid, who unlike every other player in this video, his legacy is on the line for a different reason. Last year's MVP made one of the most controversial decisions in FIBA basketball history by choosing to play for Team USA at these Olympics. Joel Embiid is from Cameroon and has always expressed his desire to represent his home country. After that, he personally reached out to the president of France, asking him to assist him in obtaining French citizenship, which would allow him to play for France at these Olympics. Embiid specifically told President Macron, quote, "I do not wish to represent any other country." The president delivered, got Embiid his passport, and the entire nation was blindsided when at the last moment he chose to play for USA instead. We talked about this whole crazy story in more detail in this full video here, check that out by clicking the top right of your screen. But this decision puts Joel Embiid under a ton of pressure, because he broke promises with 2 countries to go play for a super team to give himself the best chance of winning. Embiid has never won a title, not in college, not in the NBA, and nearing 30 years old, this is his first time playing at the international level, and the narrative surrounding Embiid at the moment is that he's a playoff choker and a loser. He is right now the villain of the NBA. Everybody hates the flopping, foul baiting and dirty plays. He's in a unique situation where if he wins the Olympics with Team USA, nothing changes. Like Carmelo Anthony, nobody will consider him a winner because Team USA is so stacked. But if USA don't win gold and this team fails, everybody will point the finger at Joel Embiid because he's the guy in the prime of his career who hasn't won. Even from Americans, Embiid has received a lot of backlash for his decision and some fans don't want him on this USA team. What they don't realise is they actually need him. Joel Embiid is going to be the main guy on Team USA. He was recruited for a reason. Team USA have struggled with size and international basketball is dominated by big men. And while USA have all the best guards and forwards, they don't have an elite 7-foot centre. There's no Shaq, Wilt, Kareem, Patrick Ewing type of guy. The best 7-footers in the NBA today are playing for other nations. Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo can play the 5 in the NBA, but for FIBA they're undersized. For example, Jaren Jackson Jr. was Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA and he got absolutely cooked at the World Cup by guys some of you won't even have heard of. USA, for all the talent, had one clear weakness that would have been exploited by other nations, such as France. Could you imagine if they didn't get Embiid and they went up against the French with a front court of Wemby and Rudy? In a one-off game, with France having home court advantage, that's dangerous. And with everything that's happened over the last year, USA cannot afford to not win gold. They need this more than ever because everybody is saying the world has caught up with USA and that they are no longer the dominant force they used to be. Everything from the NBA being taken over by European players, from Noah Lyles' comments about NBA champions not being world champions.
World champion of what? The United States?
Now more than ever USA needs to win. And in regards to Joel Embiid, right now he's the villain, so if they lose he will be the scapegoat. And if he wins it does nothing for his legacy, because it was expected. But if USA don't win gold, then he ain't beating the loser allegations until he wins a championship in the NBA. What do you think it would mean for these players if they were to do the impossible and win gold at this year's Olympics? Share your thoughts and feedback down below in the comment section, subscribe to the channel if you've made it up to this point and click the video on the screen right now. I'm sure you'll enjoy that one. And on that note, it's DKM signing out. Until next time, and peace.